This video is sponsored by Mercari. What's up guys? Today I'm working with Pallets and I'm gonna show you a few ways how you can use Pallets. But before I dive in, I wanna talk to you about today's sponsor, Mercari. Mercari is a marketplace platform where you can buy and sell almost anything online. As long as you can ship it, you can sell off your old items, tools, clothes, electronics, and so much more. Start earning while decluttering. The process is straightforward. After you create an account, you can list on the app or on the website. When you go to the homepage, you can see what's being offered and what's sold recently. This will give you a good idea on what's popular. You're buying from other people, so generally you get good deals. You can look for tools by the brand or the type, and if you look carefully, many items are shipping for free. There are so many things on here for sale, but let's say you're looking for tools. Once you find that tool you're looking for, you can place an order, or you can make an offer, wait for them to accept or counter to get the best deals possible. When it comes to selling an item, you may want to explore, see if there's any competition, what's out there, and make sure your price is competitive. You can sell items you no longer want or need, or you can sell your handmade crafts. Once you're ready, click on List an Item, take a photo, fill out the description, and all of the details pertaining to that item. Now decide how you want shipping to be handled. And finally, you can list it right away or save it to draft for a future listing. When you're listing an item with Mercari, it's not limited to just your local area, but to a wide audience, increasing your chances to land a sale. Check out the link down in the video description to start buying and selling with Mercari. Here are the pallets I chose for the first project. Few of these are twisted and did have a few areas where I could take out a straight section from it. This first project will be a lamp, and with that idea, I found a lumber that matches that idea. I was able to take these sections away from the pallet without having to deal with too much twisting. Sometimes you can get pretty lucky and find some good lumber within the pallets. This here is a piece of maple, and with a bit of sanding, I was able to reveal its color. For all these projects, I use 80 grit sandpaper to strip off the first layer and take off all the roughness. Working with pallets is not for everyone. If you have access to nicer wood, take that route. On the flip side, there are definitely people that want to work with pallets. And you can find pallets just about anywhere. This part is the base to the lamp, and I'm going to mortise in a section here. This way I can sit the top section to the lamp within. I'll continue to tweak this until I'm able to get a nice fit. I'll center up the intersection to the side panel, mark that location, and then glue the pieces together. Now I'll sprinkle a little bit of salt on here to prevent the pieces of wood from shifting. Now I'll place weight on top and use a square to make sure the two sides are aligned with each other. Once the glue has set up, I'll stain the lamp with gel stain. I like the idea of having a two-tone lamp, so I taped off the middle section and stained the base and the side panels. Now I'll remove the tape to reveal the raw maple. I like the contrast, so I think I'll leave it like this. Now to finish this off, I'll lace it up with a strip of LED. I'll be quite generous with the wood glue and only place it in the bottom of the base. Now I did cut the strip a bit longer than I wanted to. I would rather have the wire harness tucked up in between the two pieces of wood, but this is the back, so not that big of a deal. To finish this up, I'll add an inline power switch. This way I can quickly turn the light on and off. For this next project, I'll need a few more pallet planks. These pallets still have nails, so let's get those out of there. Now, one thing you may notice, I'm not breaking any pallets down, and that's because I've had these for a long time, and I broke them down a long time ago so I can store them easily. Now, this project is a rustic shelf, and I do want to keep some of the nail holes in here if possible, but I also want to keep a clean look to it at the same time. Since these cuts are not too difficult, I'll be using a circular saw to make majority of these cuts, if not all. And to this point, I've cut down the top and bottom, the two sides, and also one angle piece needs to be cut to fit within here. This is mainly for aesthetics. So I'll set this at an angle, no real calculation, just eyeballing it and marking it from underneath. I had this wire mesh laying around, and if I can use it in this project, that means I can get rid of it. So I'm gonna cut this down to fit the back side of the shelf and see how that turns out. In my head, it looked like it's doable, but in reality, you never know, so you have to give it a shot. Now this is pretty curved, so I'll hammer it out and try to flatten it some. Now I'll sand the parts down and remove that gray shade on it. Hopefully I can get them at a pretty consistent color. I'm working with aged pallets here, so I can't expect perfection, but I can expect a nice end result. Now I'll be using butt joint here, but instead of gluing them together, clamping them together, and then moving forward, I'm gonna take a different approach. I'll apply wood glue to the end grain so the end grain don't soak it all up. Then I'll set them aside for about 15 minutes, let them get quite tacky. Then I'll apply wood glue to the next part and clamp the frame together. Wood glue alone is pretty strong, and I'm very confident it's strong enough to hold this shelf together. Finally, I'll add this angled part by just gluing these pieces together. So while the glue is setting up for the entire frame, this is a good time to go ahead and sit this in place. While these parts are hard to clamp, I'll just wedge these in place with the clamps and let that set up. Now I'll just run this over one more time with the sander, clean up some of the corners, and move on to applying a finish. I put a quick Danish oil finish on here. I like the tone of it. It does give off a bit of a rustic look to it. I was really on the fence here when it comes to leaving the wire mesh as is or spray painting it. I eventually gave in and decided to spray paint it black. Now I'll line up the wire mesh to the back of the shelf and staple it down. Now I'll trim back the wire mesh to make sure it doesn't extend beyond the edge of the shelf. This project will be a 2-for-1. I'll be making a tabletop planner, one with miter corners and one with butt joints. So if you like this idea and want to replicate it, I'll give you two options, and that way you can choose the one that fits your skill set the best. Now, working with miter joints are gonna be quite tricky, especially when you have wood that is sort of warped. It's not straight. There's no real straight edge on it. We're gonna make it work though. I'll show you towards the end. After I cut the miter section for the sides, I'll cut the bottom. Now that I have all the parts laid out, I'll apply wood glue to all the intersecting areas. Now I'll use a band clamp to hold all these pieces together while the glue set up. So remember I told you about the possibility of not having a good miter joint? Here's what you could do to fix it, especially when you're working with this type of rough material. I'm gonna take a screwdriver and basically saw back and forth on the wood until I'm able to bend them over and force the edges together. Now the pallet has a lot of texture on it, plus the color change. This is something I wanted to reserve, so I didn't want to mill the wood down enough where I can lose a lot of that. So the trade-off here is dealing with an open miter joint. I don't want to sand this too much, so I do a light sand by hand. This way I can knock down some of the raised fiber. I like the look, I don't want to change it, so instead of adding any kind of finish on this, I'm just going to seal this up using spray-on shellac. Instead of having miter joints with this planner, I'll be using simple butt joints. Since all these cuts are straight cuts, I can line these pieces up together and cut all of them at the same time. With the parts laid out now, I'll apply wood glue and clamp them together. With the end grain shown on this planner, now we're dealing with two different tones here, so I'll sand the entire box down and reveal more of the inner color. I'll do the same thing as the first box and drill a couple drain holes. For this box, I'll leave it raw, no stain, just put a clear coat over it. And that concludes another one. I'm your host, Glenn. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Also, turn on your bell notification so you get notified when I post a new video. That is it for today. Catch you in the next one.